let's go ahead and get started, and maybe Carol will join us here in a minute. Again, Mr. Cagle, we really appreciate your time. I'm Jim Campbell. I'm chairman of the Budget Committee. As participants on the call, we have Kevin Alexander, who is a Budget Committee member. I'm assuming Carol will join us shortly. We also have our board chairman, James Johnson, as a participant. We have our district superintendent, Ray Washington, in here, and our upcoming superintendent, Dr. Marlon King. And there may be other people, and I know Dale. Dale, I saw you a minute ago, so I'm assuming you're still on. Just as way, Mr. Cagle, of a quick overview, we found out a few weeks ago, we were told to expect a significant shortfall in our revenue, budgeted revenue for this year we're in right now, FY20. And we found out last week that would be a little less than $3 million for what we had budgeted. And by the way, we had just budgeted maintenance of effort for the last 5 or 6, 7 years, we budgeted maintenance of effort in terms of local funding. We were also told to plan in our FY21 budget for a $10 million shortfall, which, as you can imagine, is a huge task to try to accommodate. So we really, as we met and struggled with this, we realized we just had some fundamental questions that we needed answered to understand how maintenance of effort works, what are our options under maintenance of effort, and what are our options trying to accommodate these shortfalls. So, Kevin, if it's okay with you, I think I'd like, Mr. Cagle, we'd sent you questions, and I hope you've had a chance to look at them. Yeah. I think I'd like to start with Mr. Johnson, Chairman Johnson, and his question. And then, Kevin, I'll go to you next. And then if Carol's not here, I'll ask her questions. And then we'll come back to Chairman Johnson. And really, as I thought about this, really the purpose is we are supposed to have our FY21 budget ready next week. And frankly, our chairman and our superintendent, our upcoming superintendent, just need guidance on what our options are as we look at that. So, Chairman Johnson, I'll let you ask your question first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So can you hear me?
Is he coming through? Okay.
I can see the chairman. I can't hear him.
Well,
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, man. It's good to have these IT guys handy here, Chuck. Hey, thanks again for engaging with us. These questions we have concerning upcoming budget and probably some other questions that you may feel for us also. But my primary question comes in. I don't know if you have a copy of this or not, but mine is that is there a state statute that protects us as a consolidated school district from our local funding body from forcing us to reduce our fund balance?
The answer is yes, and it's 49.6, 352, where the title of the section is the Dedicated Education Fund. that says that all the money that's received has to be placed in the dedicated education fund within an LEA. So there is a requirement, a state law requirement, that all education funds that are received are placed in a fund, and it says that that fund shall not be this fund shall not be spent unless both the funding body and the local board of education agree to spend it. So they can't force you into a position where they are just unilaterally going to appropriate your fund balance. Now, can there and will there be strong suggestions that you use your fund balances to make up for budgetary shortfalls? And the answer to that question is yes. But we made it very clear that the county commission can't unilaterally appropriate those dollars for school use. It has to be a joint action between the Board of Education and the county and the budgeting authority. In your case, the county commission.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
352.
Okay. 350. You said 352, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you, do you have any kind of follow-up question to that?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Cagle, I do have, and Dale, please, I hope you weigh in here. You said there's a requirement that all funds received have to be in there, but I think the issue is that as they look at sales tax revenues for this year, they are anticipating not receiving those dollars. So does that change our position in any way? They're saying they're not projected to receive these dollars. They're not going to have them.
And see, that's
changed it.
Yeah, sorry. That's where you've got a couple of attorney general's opinions that sort of intervene in what's going on, because the attorney general has not once but twice opined in this state that where there is a shortfall in revenue, the county commission still has the responsibility to meet maintenance of effort, and however they do it, and whether that's raising property taxes, imposing a wheel tax, doing whatever, the county commission still has a responsibility to meet maintenance of effort in the school system. Now, please understand that all the answers we're giving is based on the laws we have it today. The legislature comes back into session next week, and there's all kinds of meanness that they can get into if they want to. And I've just looked over the Senate calendar. There's nothing on the Senate calendar that amends this section, or a bill that amends this section of the code. But please understand that as we sit here today, given the law as we know it, the county commission bears the responsibility of always meeting maintenance of effort, regardless where they get that money, even if they have to take it from their fund balance and place it in education.
And you cited a couple of attorney general opinions. Has this been any case law on this, or is that?
We haven't had any case law. I see the. Okay, we haven't had any case law. We haven't had any trials on anything except the 1981 Fiscal Financial Act.
Okay. Dale, if you got any questions on this?
Yes. I think one of the questions is the county has, indicated that there's a $3 million shortfall for fiscal year 20. And I think there's some thought that that shortfall should be made up by the school system's fund balance. So the question is there a requirement that the district, the school system, make up that shortfall from the fund balance, or is the obligation on the county commission to make up that shortfall?
That's right.
The obligation always rests with the county commission to fund schools. I mean, you just have to accept that as a fundamental truth. That obligation is always there. Occasionally, the school systems will, a school system will agree to kick in fund balance to be good neighbors, to help the county commission in times when it's tight. But the obligation to fund schools rests with the county commission under Article 2 of the Constitution of Tennessee. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the way we've set this up. And there's an old case. I don't know why I remember the name of the case, but it's Cagle versus McCandless from 1917 from Cleveland City that says a school board has no authority to appropriate money at all to recommend a tax rate. That duty falls to the funding body. In this case, it was the Cleveland City Schools. In your case, it's the Madison County Commission.
Okay. Kevin, you had two questions.
I did. The first one, welcome, Mr. Cagle and Dale. I appreciate y'all's time and for y'all being here today. What are the implications of Senate Bill 1962 and House Bill 2001 on our school budget?
That is now public chapter number 576 from last year. And actually, if they read the first line and a half, it helps them. However, there is no period or comma in there. You got to read all four lines to make it go. And that act actually helps school boards. What the act says in section 1 is that the county commission is to make revenue estimates and determine the level of revenue necessary. Now that's where they're stopping. But it goes on to say to establish a budget for the operation of county schools that is at least equal to the minimum budget required to comply with local match and maintenance of effort provisions. So this section, this bill that passed last year that allows the county commission to forecast revenue, we have to go with the county commission's forecast on where the revenue is coming from. It still requires them to have revenue that would make them comply with the maintenance of effort provisions. So section 1 of this bill does absolutely nothing to help the county commission in your case.
So, Mr. Cagle, that really answers the second question that I had asked, and because I was looking at a letter from the comptroller, and it is confusing. It says, in other words, this new law does not limit a school board's ability to request funds, but requires the school board to use the local revenue estimates provided by the county in the budget submitted to the county legislative body. But you're saying that there is a predecessor requirement that revenue estimate has to meet maintenance of effort. That's what I heard you say? Well,
they have to let's see, make revenue estimates and determine the level of revenue necessary to establish a budget for the operation of county schools that meets maintenance of effort requirements.
Okay.
So they can forecast all the revenue they wish, but they're going to also have to show how they're raising enough revenue overall to meet maintenance of effort requirements. So whether that's imposing additional property taxes, a wheel tax, or taking it out of their reserve funds, they're going to have to meet, under this act, still going to have to meet maintenance of effort.
This might be an appropriate time to ask you, how would you define maintenance of effort?
I have a real answer, and I don't a real short answer for that, and I don't mean to be too trite about it, but basically what I tell people is the department makes that determination, but what they look at is, they look at how much money was spent last year. That's part number one. How much money did the county actually contribute to schools last year? And two, what is your attendance coming forward? What are you going to lose students, or are you going to gain students? Because there are adjustments throughout the year in the disbursement calendar. There are adjustments for gaining students and losing students. And number three, did you pay off bonded indebtedness that was also included in the county schools budget? So that's the third thing. If you pay off bonded indebtedness, you can reduce maintenance of effort. And that bonded indebtedness was in the school budget. The second thing is you can reduce maintenance of effort if you have a reduction in pupils. Other than that, It's a simple rule. You spent $10 last year, you're going to spend $10 this year.
Okay. Okay. Kevin, you had a second question.
Yes. What would you advise as we present our fiscal year 21 budget? Do we submit a budget requesting maintenance of effort?
Guys, and Dale and I have had lots of conversations about this, and we're, as I'm so fond of saying, lawyers have a book of ethics. It's real thin, but we have one anyway. We, under our ethical obligations, can never tell a client to violate the law. We can't do it. And if I'm, regardless of who's giving you financial advice here, legal advice, I think they would say that you are bound by law as we know it today. You're bound to present a budget that's based on maintenance of effort projections. You have no authority to go in there and cut maintenance of effort because the Department of Education may unilaterally reject that budget. So there is no authority to present a budget to the county commission that does anything other than show maintenance of effort. Now, if they want to argue with the department, if they want to argue with the comptroller about it, if the law changes, those are things that can happen. But it's our job to present a budget that's legal in its form and requirements.
Carol.
Okay, I guess maybe my question was answered because I was wanting to know what steps do we take as a school board, a school system, to even, because it seemingly we've been operating under the same amounts of monies with this maintenance of effort for a number of years. Is that correct? I mean, we haven't moved up from that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mr. Cagle, this is Carol Carter, Estes McBride that's joined us. Carol, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But yeah, to answer your question, we've been at maintenance of effort. I look back like at least in 2013, FY13.
Okay, yes. But I guess my question is, what will it take or what does it take? And Mr. Cagle might have addressed that, and I might have missed it, but in order to move it from where it is, according to how much money is needed to just basically fund the school, and I think this is what we're dealing with. Is that correct?
Well, actually, let me frame it a little bit differently. We're struggling just to get them to meet maintenance of effort. In other words, for both FY20 and fiscal year 21, just to meet that maintenance of effort. That's our issue right now. I agree that at some point we need to plan on increasing that. But right now, I think our challenge is just, and our county commission's challenge is just to meet maintenance of effort.
Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but at some point we have to start moving in that direction at some point, rather than year after year, we're sitting in the same position, I think we all agree that that's not enough money to fund our system. And so I think that maybe we need to make some plans to just go ahead and start moving toward that direction, increasing that amount of funding for the maintenance of efforts for our schools, because we have a lot to deal with, and it's going to take more money as time goes on, because we've seen that over the past few years, of course, that expenses get higher and higher and more.
Well, you're about to have one of those significant events, as I understand it, that could happen in Jackson-Madison County, and that is the opening of 2 schools, 2 brand new facilities, and that will, by its very nature, force an increase in maintenance of effort, because you're going to have staff for those schools. You're going to have equipment for those schools. You're going to have fixtures, lots of other things, and that's a natural thing that forces an increase in maintenance of effort. Maintenance of effort is kind of an odd concept, and most of the time you get a bit of an increase in maintenance of effort just because you have some growth in sales tax. 50% of all local option sales tax has to be spent in education. The county commission has no control over that. That is a state mandate. So you get some growth there, but the county commission then has the right to offset that with property tax decreases. So, you know, that's so they still end up spending the same amount of money. They're just adjusting the level in the pots. And that's but if you have significant events occur, like bringing new schools online, you know, drastic increases in student attendance and or membership, average daily membership in the district, those things will force the county commission to raise maintenance of effort. You clearly cannot open new schools with new personnel with the same budget that you have today. It doesn't work.
Yeah, right. And I guess maybe a lot of systems kind of want to stay away from these two words, but I don't see for how much longer we'll be able to do that. And that at some point, we're going to have to start seriously talking. And I guess this is something that TSBA is going to have to kind of get involved with. I mean, the taxing authority, you know what I mean? We talk about it. We mention it every now and then, every once in a while, but then it just goes away. And I realize it probably would be a difficult task, but we need to do something as it relates to that.
Well, please be aware that there's a constitutional problem with that, and that if TSBA or whoever wants to undertake it is going to have to go to a constitutional convention in the state, because Article 2 of the Constitution of Tennessee says that the legislature has taxing authorities, and they can delegate that to counties and to municipalities. And that's what the Cagle case was about in 1917, was a school board is not considered a municipality under Tennessee constitutional law. So that would require, I understand that people advocating for that, but it would require change in the Tennessee Constitution.
Okay. That's all I have for now. I might jump back in here a few minutes from now, but that's what I had on my mind at this juncture.
Okay, Carol, you had sent in two other questions. If you had those answered?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Cagle, what I'm hearing, and Dale, you jump in here, I'm hearing that there is a clear statutory requirement, not only to budget for maintenance of effort, but to actually fund for maintenance of effort. And really the only thing that reduces that is a reduction in ADMs, which we've incurred, and we understand what that will be for next year. And then if they pay off district bond indebtedness, which I think they did a year or two ago, but if they did that, would that just be a 1 year reduction in maintenance of effort?
Maintenance of effort is only, the bonded indebtedness is only affected if it's in the schools, if it's paid out of school system money. So if they put enough money in your budget to pay for bonded indebtedness, rather than taking it out of a county sinking fund, like some county commissions do.
Okay.
That's McMinn County, for example, over in Athens, Tennessee. The McMinn County Commission has a debt sinking fund. Bonded indebtedness never comes out of never gets into the county school budget. It's always paid out of county general revenue. But if that bonded indebtedness is in the school fund and it's paid off, then that's a reduction in maintenance of effort. That's where the reduction comes in. And your initial maintenance of effort, folks, I think your finance director's on the call. Your initial maintenance of effort estimates are built around closing ADM from last year.
Right.
So however many students you end up this current school year that's just now closed, however many students you are, that's how you build your budget, based on the closing numbers from last year.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go around the room then and ask anyone has any follow-up questions. Dale, I'm going to start with you. Do you have any questions for Mr. Cagle?
I actually do. I want to make sure that we're clear on a few things. The county has told us that their revenue projections for fiscal year 21 will require us to shave $10 million from our budget. What I'm hearing you say, and I want to make sure we're all clear, is that when they come to us with revenue estimates, the revenue estimates that the county gives us has to be at least equal to maintenance of effort. So they can't come and say, you've got to shave $10 million based on our revenue estimates. Those revenue estimates have to maintain effort. Is that right, Chuck?
Yes.
All right. So when they come to us with a request to shave 10 million on our budget, our obligation is to submit a budget that maintains effort at a minimum.
Yes.
All right. Now, what happens at the end of fiscal year 21? What happens if the county, and I think they probably have overestimated, but let's say the county does in fact come short of revenue projections $10 million. You know, with a budget like the school system has, where it's 75–80% personnel, you can't really turn on a dime and all of a sudden come up with $10 million 9 months into the fiscal year, because we've already spent a lot of that money, because it's all based on, a lot of it's based on personnel. So what do we do in spring of next year when they say, look, we're out of money, we don't have money? What do we do at that point?
School districts have tried to be good neighbors in the past, and tried to be good citizens. And they have held in reserve some funds, just did not spent some funds for some activities, anticipating that revenue is going to be low. That's one of the reasons why many of the school boards, of which I'm aware, and Janice may back this up, but they go to the trustee and get collections once a month from the trustee's office about what was collected in hotel motel tax, and alcoholic beverage tax, in marriage license, and litigation taxes, and sales taxes, and property taxes. What was collected, so that they can get an idea about where the money is, and they try to be good citizens and just don't spend some things for some things. On the other hand, the Attorney General has made it very clear in this state, and both those in the Hamilton County opinion, that ultimately the county commission is responsible for funding maintenance of effort. They're responsible for funding the budget, and that may force them into some positions that they don't like, some positions that are not politically expedient every now and then, but they're responsible for funding that budget. It's easy to say. I don't think it's too. Let me say it another way. I don't think it's too simplistic to say that the county needs to understand that there is no provision in the statute just to unilaterally cut the budget. It doesn't exist. Now, that may be changed before the end of next week, but there is no provision in Title 49 of the code that allows a county commission to unilaterally cut money from a school system budget.
So 9 months from now, let's say we are running short of revenue. So the county at that point could not force us to use our fund balance to make up that difference, correct? It has to be a mutual decision.
It's a mutual decision, that's correct. Right.
So the county could use some of its own fund balance to make up the difference, correct?
That's correct.
The county could restructure some debt that it has to free up monies for revenue, correct?
That's correct.
And of course, then the county could look for opportunities to increase revenues by increasing taxes or implementing wheel tax, et cetera.
Yeah, the only thing that the county can't do, that I know of, the only thing they can't do is there's a list of taxes out there that they cannot utilize to pay school, to put in the school fund. The biggest example there is beer tax, wholesale beer tax. They can't use that money to put it in the school fund. just because there's no statutory authority for it. So, they can't go out and just grab up certain other pots of money that are listed in the statute. But between sales tax, property tax, litigation taxes, alcoholic beverage taxes, which is mixed drink taxes, several in lieu of tax payments that may come into the county from the federal government in lieu of federal facilities property taxes, those are the taxes that they can draw from to pay from, and then they have their fund balance and several other pots of money that they can get money out of.
But Mr. Cagle, if the statutory guidance on maintenance of effort is this clear, can the county commission even approve a budget that we submit that doesn't contemplate maintenance of effort?
I don't mean to be too trite about it, but the answer is yes, they could approve it, but I'm not so sure the Department of Education or the comptroller would approve it.
Okay.
Because the county commission doesn't have the ultimate authority to say this budget's approved. It has to be submitted to the state for approval. And again, under the law as we know it today, it was at least my opinion that I don't think the department would approve that budget if they submitted it and did not meet maintenance of effort.
Okay. Dale, do you have anything else?
No, but I see that Holly has her hand raised.
Okay, Holly.
Hello.
Hey, Holly.
Turn up my volume. Best I can tell, we've been funded at maintenance of effort all the way back to 0506. That being the case, even though we do have money in our budget now to pay the county on a note that they took out for an energy efficiency upgrade, they've never increased our maintenance of effort to accommodate that debt payment. And so would there be an allowable adjustment to maintenance of effort, being that they've paid that note off?
Did they pay it out of county funds or did they pay it out of school system funds?
Well, they took the note out themselves and paid it, but we've been making a transfer to the county annually to pay off their note.
Okay. It's the old bait and switch routine. Yes, they could, if they are using your money to pay for that and that note is paid, then, well, let me see. They're paying for it and you're just transferring the money over to pay it?
Right.
There should not
They
be.
Chuck, they actually paid the note off. So we're just paying them back the principal payments over the next, Holly, what, 4 or 5 years?
Right.
So that money, there will not be a maintenance of effort in that case. Because all you're doing is sending them money that's generated under maintenance of effort. You're just you're making a transfer to the county commission to pay that note. That would not result in a lowering of maintenance of effort.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Holly?
No, thanks.
Okay.
Let me answer a question that Mrs. McWright asked here, and it's about teacher salaries. First of all, we've got statutory authority and regulatory authority in the state that we cannot reduce a teacher's salary. That's, I understand it may have been bandied around, that if not in your district and another with which I'm dealing with, there's no statutory authority to adjust the local supplement down at all. And here's what is available to the school system. There are raises in two forms. Number one, there are step raises that are built into the salary schedule of a local school system. If you go from a certain step in number of years to training and experience to another step in training and experience, sometimes there are step increases there. And then there's just a flat out across the board raise. So you don't have to grant an across the board salary increase, and you can freeze step increases. You just can't reduce salaries. So if Cagle goes from 10 years experience and a master's degree, and I go up to 11 years of experience and a master's degree, there's some small amount of money that's generally attached to that. You can freeze step increases. You can't lower my salary, but you may not fund the step increases. Now, that is something that is available, and that answers Mrs. McCrate's question. Blount County did this a few years ago, and we actually did have a lawsuit over that, in which the county school board prevailed. Rob Goddard and I represented the county commission in that lawsuit, and we were able to prove to the court's satisfaction that we didn't lower anybody's salary. We just did not fund the step increase, which is pretty much optional, except at certain steps. And you have to go to the State Board of Education rule. At certain steps, you've got to fund a step increase. And I believe it's at 5 years and 10 years, maybe there's an automatic step increase built into the State Board rule. But every other step increase that's provided for is optional and based on local funding.
Okay. Mr. Washington, if you got questions for Mr. Cagle.
No, I think everything's been covered. We had this discussion this morning and has had it over the past week, and I'm pretty clear on all the things that Mr. Cagle stated.
Okay. Well, Chairman Johnson, we started out with you and we'll end up with you. You are tasked with the superintendents for getting this budget pulled together. What do you have questions or anything else you need that would be helpful to you?
Thank you, Jim. I've got one question, Chuck, that's been looming, I guess, since spring break when we had to close school early. And we don't know what school opening is going to look like this fall or whenever we open schools. What would our funding body's obligation be to us if we had emergency situations concerning funding and we don't have the funds in our fund balance? For instance, if we had to do continued virtual learning, we used the $3 million or so we got for the CARE grant, and it cost us $4 to $6 million more to get through that process. Virtual learning, partial virtual learning, and partial going to school, sanitizing, all those things. What would be the funding body's obligation to support us financially in a situation like that, this pandemic?
Again, sitting here as we sit here today, knowing the law as it exists on May 27, 2020, the funding body's obligation is a maintenance of effort budget. They have to meet maintenance of effort, and they don't have to go 1 cent above that at this junction. And we understand that there may be some extraordinary circumstances that arise. In fact, folks, I'm just going to tell you, I've taken the position in a lot of places, public and private, that if we think we're going to start next school year out using the same set of rules that we started last school year out with, we're all very mistaken. We've never had anything like this. I hope we never have it again, but all the old rules are right now tossed out the window, except for funding. You know, they've got, as we sit here today, they've got to meet those funding requirements. So if you have some extraordinary costs in there that are involved in cleaning schools and alternate schedules and things like that, talked to a county today who's going to have half their students come in 1 week and half of them come in next week, and in the middle of the students that are not there are going to be working on computers. They've got to buy some computers. So that's if you do that, you need to be prepared to show how you're going to spend the money that's appropriated for you by the county commission, because I guarantee you, if they're fighting now, they're certainly not going to be very welcoming toward an increase in funding.
Mr. Chairman, if the reality of the matter, though, is that if we get funded in maintenance of effort this year and next year, we've got ample fund balance to reasonably meet the challenges of COVID-19. The problem is if our fund balance gets eroded either this year or next year.
Let me give you a warning. if I could, about something that happened last week in another call that I was on. We've not been able to deliver a certain level, and I don't know how much that is, but statewide, we've not been able to deliver a certain level of special education service. And for those services that we didn't deliver that were funded by federal dollars, to some extent, there's a saving there. Well, if we haven't obligated those funds, there is a federal maintenance of effort that attaches itself to special education. If you don't obligate all of your federal funds and you don't deliver all the services, then you have to pay that back to the federal government. And do you know what money that you use to do that? Local tax dollars. Local tax dollars. So folks, there's another hammer out there that's about to hit you with regard to special education, the provision of special education services. And what I would remind the county commission is that the federal government has little toleration for this. The secretary has at least sent out guidance so far that says she's not going to relieve a local school district of their obligations. So if we don't get those monies obligated, we got to pay them back. And that payback is out of local tax dollars. That's going to burn. And we're busy working with Congress to try to get the secretary to back off that right now.
That answers my question, and it also, I think, reinforced the fact that if we drain our fund balance, we have emergencies like the pandemic, it's financial suicide. Thanks, Chuck.
Any other questions for Mr. Cagle? Dale, anything else occur to you?
No, I think I've asked the questions I had.
But Mr. Cagle, are other districts dealing with this, or are we just in an unusual circumstance here?
It's statewide. I mean, we're in that process now. Metro Nashville has been told to cut $30 million out of their budget. I've dealt with some very small counties who have not been hit as hard by this pandemic as one might have thought, because the businesses just open. I mean, out in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, they just opened up. Who's monitoring them? So they've had some revenue. It's going to be difficult statewide, and again, thinking the same way, addressing problems the same way we have for a number of years to try to get out of this little tight spot is not going to work. It is just not going to work. So look for some statewide backlash. I've dealt with Sullivan County on theirs most of today. As a matter of fact, when I've been talking to Dale Thomas, I've been talking to Pat Hull. So it really is a statewide problem.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we appreciate your time.
Let me say a couple of things. Number one, it's always a privilege to work with Dale Thomas. He's a good guy, and he and I have had to face a lot. I think we've been practicing law about the same number of years.
Yeah.
But we cried on each other's shoulder a few times, so and rejoiced a lot too. But it's always a privilege to work with Dale Thomas. I don't know what I can say about Marlon, but unless I get in trouble. But you all picked a good one, and you got to teach him to tie a long tie sometime. I don't know what the deal is.
All right. Kevin, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Carol, are you good?
Yes.
Okay. We appreciate it, Mr. Cagle. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Before, let's see, Pete, we have moved our call meeting till Monday night. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Give us more time to, so I knew after this call, we may need to make some adjustments, and I think we will.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
We're adjourned.
Yeah.